Okay, so today's notes we're going to be going over are found in the Unit 1 folder, Day 3. So when you click on our class content, find Unit 1, and you'll notice that I renamed the folders ever so slightly just so that they reflect the date that they're being taught. So today's folder is called 9/15/21, Day 3. I think it says midpoint distance formula. In that folder, you're going to find the PowerPoint that I'm about to go over. It's also attached to your plan. So if you click on your plan and you see a PowerPoint there, that's the PowerPoint that I'm going over. The finished notes will be posted, let's say by 3 o'clock today, they'll be there. And then once we're done making a recording, this recording will be there too. Clearly there's no recording yet because we haven't recorded the lesson yet, but once it's recorded, you'll find it in that folder too. And then the exit ticket. After today, you will have 3 completed attendance quizzes and 3 completed exit tickets. Remember that Monday's lesson was asynchronous, which means that that lesson was a recorded lesson for you in Play Pause It. So if you didn't do that lesson on Monday, there's still time to do it. The attendance quiz for it will close on Monday at 11. Last Wednesday's attendance quiz has already closed. And then there's an attendance quiz for today. And that will close 1 week from today at 11 a.m. Okay, if you have a hard time finding the notes or anything like that, you're welcome to email me and I can help you find anything you need. Okay, after today's lesson, you will have everything that you need to do the first quiz. You'll see that the first quiz is assigned to you on Friday. If you've already taken it once, that's okay. Just know that you only get 2 attempts on a quiz. So once you use the second attempt, it's over. So just use caution when working ahead. Where can we find geometry honors? So if you are in honors, your class is the honor stuff, and it's set up exactly the same way. It just has some extra material in it. So if you want me to show you that individually, come see me during office hours on Tuesday. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about the distance formula. Okay, I'm going to write the distance formula 2 different ways, and you can choose whichever way you want to use it. It doesn't matter which one, really. Okay. I like to use lowercase d for distance. So the distance is the square root. Where'd it go? Square root x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. Or some people write it the other way. x1 minus x2 squared plus y1 minus y2 squared. Either one, it doesn't matter. Now, these are subscripts right here. This 2 and this 1, this 2 and this 1. They don't mean to perform an operation. They're part of the name. Because it gives us 2 coordinates, we have to have a way to differentiate the first x value and the second x value. And the way that we do that is we give them these little subscripts. So from the first coordinate, it has an x and a y. It gets little subscripts, so they go together. And then the second coordinate, it also has an x and a y. And since they go together, they get 2's for their subscripts. This is a formula that you'll need to memorize. This is not on a formula sheet anywhere. You're not allowed to use any notes or formula sheets on quizzes or tests. So you're going to want to make sure you have this memorized before you take the quiz and definitely before you take the test. There's a study guide for the unit test. There's not a study guide for the quiz. If you want ways to study for the quiz, make sure you're doing the extra practice problems. Hold on, wait, why not? Why not what? So everyone was required to take a beginning of the year quiz, and I definitely covered that you're not allowed to use notes on a test or a quiz. That definitely violates our academic integrity if you're using notes on tests and quizzes. So make sure you're not doing that. No notes on tests or quizzes. Why? Because you have to know the material. You have to know how to do it without your notes or quizzes. Yeah, crazy, I know. Yeah, you're definitely allowed to use scratch paper, wipe off board, whatever. Yeah, the only thing that you're allowed to use on a test or quiz is a calculator, and there is an SOL formula sheet. But when there's actually things on it that are useful, I'll let you know. We're probably not even going to use that SOL formula sheet until the second half of the year. Hi, Claire. I'm happy to see you, dear. All right, let's practice using the distance formula. All right. Number 1 says find the distance between the 2 points on the graph. So to do that, using the distance formula, we need to know the coordinates of these 2 points. So we have to find the coordinates of each point. I go left 5 and up 3. So the coordinate of that first point is -5, +3. The other endpoint is, what is this, -2, -3. And then I'm going to write those over here. And once I know those 2 points, I'm pretty much done using that graph. I know in the distance formula, I need to know the x and the y's. So I'm going to label this x, y, x, y. Every coordinate has an x and a y coordinate. From the first point, I'm going to give it sub 1s, so I know that those are from the first coordinate. And I'll give these guys over here sub 2s, so that I know they're from the second coordinate. And if you flip-flopped these, you're going to get the same answer, and that's okay. So to plug them into the distance formula, the distance formula is the square root. I'm going to use the first one that I wrote down. x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. Guys, I hate minus and negative. Ooh, maybe it's the mathematician in me. I don't know. Little OCD. Minus negative is really plus. Hopefully we all remember that from middle school. And if you don't, now you know. Minus a negative is really addition. So I'm going to rewrite this as -2 plus 5 squared. -3 minus 3. I don't need to change anything there. At this step, I am perfectly okay with you plugging this right into a calculator. Just don't forget that square root. So if you were typing this into Desmos, you would type square root, parenthesis, -2 plus 5, close parenthesis, squared, plus, parenthesis, -3 minus 3, close parenthesis, squared. If you would like to know where to find Desmos, in OMHS, there's a folder called Geometry Toolbox. There is a link to Desmos right in there for you. And if you did that, you would get a decimal answer. And that's okay, I guess. But I'm going to show you a different way to find the answer too. So I'm going to do it by hand. -2 plus 5 is 3. So I'm going to keep that in parentheses. 3 squared. -3 minus 3 is -6. Keeping that in parentheses, that's -6 squared. Okay, I'm going to run out of space up here. Square root. 3 squared is 9, and -6 squared is a positive 36. Remember that when you're squaring a number, it's really like taking that number times itself. And a negative times a negative is positive. Be careful when typing a negative number squared in your calculator. You have to use the parentheses, otherwise it's going to tell you the wrong number. Anything squared is positive. A positive number squared, positive. A negative number squared, positive. 9 plus 36 is 45. Okay, so the square root of 45, although that's not going to be our final answer. When you did the Get Ready for Geometry module the first week of school, one of the lessons in there was how to simplify a radical. If you didn't do it, you skipped it, or otherwise, you're going to want to go back and review how to simplify a radical. I'm going to simplify the square root of 45. So quickly here, to simplify a radical, you break down that 45 into its prime factors. 45 is really 5 times 9. Whenever you find a factor that's prime, remember prime means its only factors are 1 in itself. Circle it. 5 is prime. 9 is 3 times 3. Those are prime. So the square root of 45 is really the square root of 3 times 3 times 5. You look for your partners. See how I have 2 3s? One of those 3s will get to leave the radical and one will cancel. So 1 3 left the radical. That one canceled, and the 5 was left in the radical. So my final answer here is 3 root 5. If you found the decimal, you got about 6.7. Okay. The reason you need to know both is if you have a multiple choice question, I promise you that those options are going to be in this radical form. Now, if you have to type in an answer, most of the time it'll tell you just round to the nearest tenth, and you can just type in 6.7. This simplifying a radical is going to continue to pop up throughout the course, though. So I highly recommend making sure that you understand how to simplify the radical. And if you need to go back and review that in the get ready for geometry part, definitely should do that. If it's the square root of 25, then you would just say 5 and all would be happy. Yeah. I missed some chat here. Hold on one second. So Muhammad, you just need the square root symbol there, and I know you can't type it. So yes, with a square root. If the negative is outside the parentheses, will the number be negative? Yes. So if you had a negative and then in parentheses 6 squared, then it would be negative 36. That you're not going to see that in the distance formula here, though. Good questions. Very good questions, everyone. All right. Now, in number 2, it doesn't give us a graph. It just says find AB. Notice that there's no segment symbol above AB here. When you see it written as just 2 capital letters with no symbol, that means length or distance. So what this question is really saying, find the length of AB. What if the root had only 1 3 instead of 2? Then you wouldn't be able to simplify it, and it would just stay the square root of 15. That was a good question. All right, so let's see. Let's find the distance between A and B. So step 1, label your X and Y's. X, Y, X, Y. Give the first coordinate sub 1s and the second coordinate sub 2s. Now you know what to plug in for each variable in your distance formula. So the distance between A and B is the square root x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. Oh, I don't like a minus negative. I'm going to rewrite that with a plus. If you put minus negative in the calculator, it'll still work. I don't like it. Okay, and at this step, you could type this straight into the calculator if you wanted. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to keep going by hand here. Square root 3 plus 4 is 7, so that's 7 squared. Negative 1 minus 1 is negative 2. 7 squared is 49. Negative 2 squared is a positive 4. And we get the square root of 53. 53 is already prime, so I can't simplify this radical because that number can't be broken down anymore. So my final answer is the square root of 53. Or if you found it as a decimal, you found 7.3, and that would be acceptable also. Ooh, whoever figured out how to type that radical, that's really cool. Yep, except 53 is prime, so it can't be simplified. So the square root of 53 would be our answer, or 7.3. When you're doing an assessment, just read the directions. 100% of the time, if it's asking you for the distance and you have to type your answer in, it's going to have you round it. The only time that you're really going to have to do this whole simplifying thing really is if it's multiple choice. And even then, if you found the decimal, you could figure out which one of the multiple choice answers matches your decimal. Okay, so that is the distance formula. I could do these problems all day. I love the distance formula, but it's you that needs the practice to get really good at it. You'll notice that tomorrow on your plan, is a practice worksheet, and there's some practice problems for you there. Yeah, good job. I mean, that's perfect, Mohammed. Very nice. All right, so I'm going to leave number 3 there for you to practice on your own. Once the key is posted, you can double check your answer. If you don't get the correct answer, you have some options. You can look at the key and see if you can find your mistake. And if you do, that's great. If you can't find your mistake or you don't understand why what you're doing isn't correct, take a picture of your work, send it to me, and say, hey, Miss Grandy, can you help me figure out my mistake or what I'm doing wrong? And I'll happily get back to you. There's a good chance I'd make you your own little video. We would Zoom one-on-one, or if it's something I could type in an email, I would try to do that too. But if you need help, please let me know. So number 3, I'm going to let for you to practice on your own, and we are going to go to the next slide where we talk about midpoint formula. All right, so when you hear the word midpoint, I'm hoping that you hear the words middle point, the point in the middle. Okay, so the point in the middle. And if I have a point that's in the middle, that means that each side on either side of it has to be the same. Otherwise, it's not in the middle anymore, right? Because middle means if it's in the middle, that means that this piece and this piece have to be exactly the same length. That's what a midpoint is. So we could have a line or a segment that is graphed on a coordinate plane, and it's not vertical or horizontal, but I still want to know what point is in the middle. And if that happens, we can use the formula. I use this capital M for midpoint, where we find the average of the x values and the average of the y values. Remember, average means that you add however many you have and then divide by however many you have. So if I gave you 2 quizzes and you got a 50 on one quiz and 100 on the other quiz, well, your quiz average would be a 75% because you add the 50 and the 100 and then divide by 2 since there were 2 quizzes. The midpoint's the same idea. Think of it as the average of the x values and the average of the y values. And there's a comma here and we're in parentheses because it's going to give us a new coordinate. This will be the coordinate of the point in the middle. It might be a little easier to see here. I'm going to show it to you as the example with the formula. And I'm going to show you how to do it on a graph, and you can decide which way you like best. Okay, but just like in distance, I'm going to label x, y, x, y. The first point are the 1s and the second point are the 2s. So the midpoint would be 7 plus 9 divided by 2, and -5 plus -1 divided by 2. Well, 7 plus 9 is 16, divided by 2 is 8. -5 plus -1 is -6, divided by 2, -3. So the coordinate of the midpoint is 8, -3. This is another formula that is not on a formula sheet anywhere. So you're going to want to memorize this or do the method I'm about to show you. So let me show you another method to finding the midpoint. Find my whiteboard. All right, so I'm going to graph the points that they gave me. Remember, on a graph, you have your x and y axis. So here's my y. Here's my x. The point they gave us was 7, -5. So I'm going to graph 7, -5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here we go. And then I'm going to graph the point 9, -1. And I want to know what would be the coordinate of the point that's exactly in the middle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to count how would I get from the first endpoint to the other endpoint by walking only on the grid. So I would go up 1, 2, 3, 4. and over 1, 2. Now, remember, midpoint is point in the middle. So instead of going up 4, I would want to go up to just halfway. Half of 4 is 2. So I'm going to go up 2. And half of the 2 is 1, so I'm just going to go over 1. So that point right there is exactly in the middle. Now, the coordinate is not 2, 1. That's not the coordinate. No, 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 no. That's a mistake that students make. The coordinate is not 2, 1. That's just how I got there, up 2 over 1. I needed the coordinate of that point. So I would go over 8 and down 3. So the coordinate of that point is 8, negative 3. You could also think of it as your number line, x. You're at a 7, and then you're at a 9. What number is exactly halfway between 7 and 9? 8. Or you're at a negative 1 on the y, and then you're at a negative 5. What number is exactly halfway between negative 1 and negative 5? Well, that's negative 3. There's not a shortcut with the distance like there is with the midpoint. Eventually, I'll show you a little trick with the distance, but we have to learn a lot more geometry before I can show you that trick. So for now, just memorize the distance formula. If you want to use the graph paper way to do midpoint, I'm perfectly fine with that. You can print graph paper. Like I just Google printable graph paper and then print it. Or if you want to be fancy and buy graph paper, you're welcome to do that too. Yeah, Gabriel, that's fine. How can you tell whether we should go from 9, 1 to... It doesn't matter. If you wanted to go the other way, if you wanted to start up here at 9, negative 1 and go to 7, negative 5, you're going to get the same answer. You would just go down 4 and left 2. So to get to the midpoint, you would have to go down 2 and left 1, and you'd end up at the same place. That was a really good question. So the question was, how do you know which point to start at? You pick. And if you had started up here at the top, you would have just gone down 4 and left 2. So to get to the midpoint, you'd go down 2 and left 1. Very good question. All right, let's see if it saved my work. Did it save my work? Nope. That's frustrating. All right, where were we here? Midpoint. While I rewrite all this back into my notes, because for some reason it didn't save, go ahead and try number 5. See if you can find the midpoint of AB, given these 2 points. You can use graph paper if you want, or the formula, whatever way you like best. I'm going to rewrite all that back in. I'm going to silently write in number 5 while you're working on it, and we'll see if we get the same answer. All right, so you should get -2, 0. I used the formula. And I did, let's see, question. Why do you do -7 plus 3? Aren't you supposed to do -7 plus -4? No, because the formula is x1 plus x2. So you want to add your x values together. The x value here is -7 and the x value here is 3. And then divide by 2. And then you've got your y values, which you want to add together, which are 4 and -4. That's okay, Enzo. All right, hopefully that answered your question for you. The capital M is just yeah, I just use that big capital M for midpoint, although you are going to see the midpoint named other things besides M. I think midpoint is probably a little easier than distance, but either one, it's good. As long as you know the formula, you can plug in numbers. The distance formula feels scary because it's so long, but none of the steps are difficult. All right, so that is midpoint. Now let's find a missing endpoint. All right, I'm about to lock the door. If you happen to have some connectivity issues and you get locked out and you try to come back in, send me a quick email and say, hey, Miss Grandy, I was just in class and I can't get back in. Otherwise, I'm locking the door. Here we go. So before I go over this problem, let's say that our attendance word today is endpoint. Okay, write that down somewhere. Your attendance word is endpoint. Yep. Capitalization doesn't matter, but the spelling does. Endpoint is one word, endpoint. Okay, everyone got that written down? So once I go away from it, I'm not talking about it again. Okay, let's see. Endpoint, endpoint, endpoint. That's for the attendance quiz. Yes, it is. All right. Question was, can I see the midpoint formula one more time? Yes, you can. There you go, dear. Midpoint formula is x1 plus x2 divided by 2, comma, y1 plus y2 divided by 2. You're welcome. Okay, so if we want to find a missing endpoint, there are two ways to do this. There is a super algebra way to do it, and then there's an easy box method. You guys okay if I show you the easy way? Yeah? All right, let's do the easy way. If you want to see the algebra way, especially for my honor students, it might be very useful. Come see me during honors or office hours, and we can talk about that. I'm going to show you the easy way though. Okay. So what's going on in this problem is they are giving us coordinates of the midpoint, and that's M. It says M is the midpoint. They're giving us coordinates of one endpoint, B, and they want us to find the other endpoint, A. So there's this segment, AB. They're telling us the midpoint. They're telling us that one. They're telling us B, and they want to know what's the coordinate of A. So this is what I call Mrs. Grandy's box method. Okay. You're not going to find this in a textbook anywhere. I don't think so. In your box method, you're going to make a box. You're going to give it two columns. One column for X and one column for Y. And then you're going to give it 3 rows. That middle row is for the midpoint. So when you know what the midpoint is, you put its name out here, and you put its coordinate in the boxes, -1, 2. The midpoint or the endpoint that they give you is going to go first. So B is the given endpoint, and its coordinate is 3, -5. Okay, so all I've done is set this up. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to think of my X and Y axes as number lines, well, because they are. Okay. So picture, if you will, I am standing on a number line at 3, and I'm going to go for a walk. I'm walking along and I get to -1 and there's a big sign there that says, "You're halfway there." How far did I walk so far? I started at 3 and now I'm at -1. Ooh, I like that you included, yes. A lot of you were typing in there including the negative, and you're right. I went to the left because I ended up at -1. So I did a -4. I went 4 units to the left. Now I'm standing there at the sign, and big sign that says, "You're halfway there." I want to get to the other end. How much further am I going to have to walk to get to the other side? Yeah, I'm going to have to go -4 again, right? Because I'm halfway there. So to get to the other end point, I have to go another -4 units. So I end up at -5. I'm at -1. I go -4 more units. I'm at -5 now. Right? Now let's look at the y values. I'm starting at -5, and I go for a walk. I don't know why I sing on my walk, but I do. I get to 2, and there's a big sign. You're halfway there. How far did I walk? Yeah, I went +7 units. So since I'm halfway there, to get to the other end, I have to go 7 units again. So 2 plus 7 is 9. The coordinate is -5, 9. That will be the coordinate of A. Yeah, so that's my box method to finding a missing endpoint. If you want to use graph paper, so maybe that confused you a little bit, or my story of walking on a number line was just too drawn out. Let's look at a graph, just in case the graph helps you better. Okay. Where's my line? Wait, graph paper. Graph paper. Line. Sorry, guys, got to build my graph. Y-axis, x-axis. All right, let's go back to the problem at hand, except this time, instead of the box, let's use the graph. So the problem said the midpoint is at -1, 2. So I'm going to graph the point -1, 2, and that's the midpoint, M. And then there's a point at 3, -5. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then there's some point A, and it's out here somewhere. I just don't know where. Where are you, A? Let's find out. Well, if I want to go from B to M, I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And I'm going to go left 1, 2, 3, 4. That looks familiar, right? We were doing a +7 and a -4 earlier in the box. Okay, so I started at B and I'm at M. I'm halfway there. You're halfway there. Yay for you. Woohoo. Okay, so now let's go again. Up 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You're going to go left 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. There is point A. So now you just have to figure out what is the coordinate of point A. So you would have to, count your blocks. Find the coordinate of A. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Left 5, up 9, -5, 9. Same answer we just got before. This does work every time. If neither one of those ways worked for you, come see me during office hours. I can show the algebraic way during office hours. I don't want to confuse people who are feeling confident in the box method or the graphing method. Okay, so let's do one more example with the box method, and then I'll let you do one on your own here. Where did my playlist go? All right, so if you are confused and you keep typing in the chat, I'm super confused. Let's just do this one together, okay? Let's do it together. Make a box. 2 columns, 3 rows. column x's and y's. Now let's read the problem. Find the coordinates of j. Okay, j is an endpoint, so I'm going to put it right there. J is an endpoint. If k at -5, 10 is the midpoint, k is the midpoint. So in this case, the midpoint wasn't labeled m, it was labeled k. But its coordinate is -5, 10. L has coordinates -8, 6. So we're finding this missing endpoint. So how would you go from a -8 to a -5 on a number line? You would add 3. Since k is exactly in the middle, that whatever is the distance between LK has to be the same distance between KJ. So you add 3 again. -5 plus 3 is -2. Now we do our y's. How would you go from a 6 to a 10 on a number line? Very good. I'm seeing a lot of good stuff come through the chat there. You add 4. Well, if the distance between L and K is adding 4, then the other distance has to be exactly the same in order for it to be in the middle. So I'm going to do plus 4 again, and 10 plus 4 is 14. So if you were typing in my chat -2, 14, you were right, and I thank you for your participation. So good job, everyone. I appreciate that. This will work every time when finding an endpoint. Perfect. Okay, if you wanted to do the graph and you wanted to count the blocks, you would have counted going up 4 and right 3. So you would have gone up 4 and right 3 again. Let's see, tip for anyone with Microsoft. There's a whiteboard option next to the date on your laptop desktop. Interesting. Sybil, if you know how to make a video and you want to show me how to do that, maybe we could help other people figure out how to use that too. That'd be great. All right, again, I'm going to let this one be here for you to practice. The answer will be on the answer keys once it gets posted. Give me till 3 o'clock to get that up there, but you can check your answer there. And we're going to move on to the next type of problem. The notes key will be right where you found these notes, but underneath of it. It's not posted there yet. I have to upload it. Okay. So in number 9, it says if P is the midpoint of XY, XP equals 8x minus 2, PY is 12x minus 30, find the value of X. This can feel overwhelming, right? Just like anything in life, let's do it one step at a time. I love geometry because 99% of the time, there's a picture that we can draw that goes with it. And I'm not a great artist, but I can draw a segment, right? Segment XY. And P is its midpoint. Midpoint is exactly in the middle. Oh, some of you are way ahead of me. That's okay. So these little tick marks mean they're the same length. All right, so we okay with my picture? Anyone confused with the picture I just drew? Want to make sure you understand what I just drew there before we move on. Good. Okay, so XP is 8x minus 2, so I'm going to label that. And PY is 12x minus 30. Now, if I have two pieces that are exactly the same size, that means their lengths are equal. So I can say that the length of XP has to equal the length of PY. Or in other words, 8x minus 2 equals 12x minus 30. At this point, the geometry part is over. And we just do algebra. So let's see. I'm going to get all my x's to one side. So I'm going to do minus 8x to both sides. So I get negative 2 equals 4x minus 30. Let's get the 30 away from the x's. So plus 30 plus 30. I'm running out of space. 28 equals 4x. And divide both sides by 4. And you get x equals 7. If that algebra felt just really overwhelming right now, I don't want your algebra skills to stop you from being successful in geometry, and I'll do anything I can to help you improve those. So if you want help with solving equations, there's a few things that you can do. First, in that folder, Get Ready for Geometry, that we did at the beginning of the year, there's some videos and some lessons on solving equations. So if you need that, definitely go back and review those. And you're also allowed to use Desmos. Desmos has a way to solve an equation. And if you want to know how to do that, again, that folder at the beginning of the year, Get Ready for Geometry, there's a video in it where I teach you how to use Desmos to solve. So if this algebra felt super overwhelming, we're going to keep practicing it, but we're going to find other ways to help you solve it so that way you can still be successful. Okay? Any questions on how I got that x equals 7? I'm going to take that silence as a no. Let's do number 10 together. Thank you, Katie. All right, I'm going to draw a picture. It says G is the midpoint of FH. So here's a segment, FH. Here's my midpoint G, and I know G is a midpoint, so that means these two pieces have to be the same. FG is 14x plus 25. GH is 73 minus 2x. Since each of these pieces are congruent, that means that each expression is equal to the other. So 14x plus 25 equals 73 minus 2x. And now we play algebra. Let's get all the x's together. So plus 2x plus 2x. 16x plus 25 equals 73. I'm going to get rid of that 25. Minus 25 on each side. What do we get? 73 minus 25. 48. Divide both sides by 16, and we get 3. Now, the answer is not 3 because it says find FH. But that 3 is going to help me find my answer. We're going to take that 3 and we're going to plug it in for FG. So 14 times 3 plus 25. We can plug it in for the x over here on GH. 73 minus 2 times 3. And you'll get what each segment is congruent or is equal to. 67. So you should get 67 for both. And if you don't get 67 for both, you made a mistake because these two pieces have to be the same. So if you got a 67 and a 71, then G's no longer in the middle and we made a mistake somewhere. All right, so if each of these pieces is 67, then that whole thing, this is our segment addition. The whole thing is going to be 67 plus 67. So FH is 134. If this was a multiple choice question, I promise you that 3, 67, and 134 are all going to be there. All right, I think we have one more problem here, don't we? Yeah, one more. In the last problem, it's a very similar process. You're just going to see kind of different directions. So I want you to be familiar with how to solve a problem that maybe uses just a little bit of different vocabulary. Here we have a picture, and it says that line N bisects QR. Whenever you hear the word bisect, you should think of two sections, and they're two equal sections. So if I'm bisecting something, I'm cutting it into two equal parts. Okay, so bisect, two equal parts. As soon as I know that line N is bisecting QR, I know that these two pieces have to be the same. Good job, Enzo. And now P is my midpoint because that's exactly in the middle. And we can set up our equation. So I can say that QP has to be equal to PR. And this is a step that isn't super necessary. If you want to go straight to saying 3x plus 5 equals 5x minus 19, that's fine with me. I'm going to subtract 3x from both sides. Let's add a 19 to both sides and divide by 2. All right, we wanted to find QP, so I'm going to take that 12 and plug it in. 3 times 12 plus 5. So you get QP equals 41. All right, any questions on how I knew how to set this up, how I solved, how I got my answer? Wonderful. If you have questions, please ask. That's what I'm here for. I love helping students. I love teaching, and I love helping you out. So if you don't have any questions, you are free to go. If you do have questions, please just stick around and let me answer them for you. If you think of a question later, send me an email. Take a picture of your work so that way I know what you're doing, but I'm happy to help. Have a great day, guys.